Okay, I'm going to play one more prelude before we go on to bigger and wilder things. This next prelude, though, this was one by Frédéric Chopin. So fast forward in time, more than 100 years. This is in the middle 1800s. Chopin lived in the height of the Romantic era in the 1800s, when everything was, more passionate and more involved, and more of trying to draw the listener into experience of some kind. This prelude comes from a difficult time in Chopin's life. He died when he was in his late 30s of tuberculosis, and this comes a few years before he died. He was starting to feel the effects of the disease, and he had some interesting advice from his doctor in France. His doctor said something along the lines of, "Monsieur Chopin, the problem with your lungs is the foul air you're breathing in Paris. It's cold, it's damp, it's crowded and polluted. What you must do is go to the Mediterranean. The warm sea breezes, they will soothe your inflammation, they will fix your problem." This was a common thing in those days. And Chopin took his doctor's advice and went to the island of Mallorca in the Mediterranean. And as the story goes, it rained for the whole 3 months that he was there. So poor fellow couldn't catch a break. And has anyone ever asked you the desert island question? As in, if you were going to an island, you could just bring one, piece of music or one book or whatever, what would it be? Well, Chopin rather famously only took one book of piano music with him on this trip. He took that Well-Tempered Clavier of Bach, the one that I mentioned earlier, those preludes and fugues. So that answers the desert island question for Chopin, I guess. So while he was there, he did quite a bit of composing. He came up with his own set of preludes in all the major and minor keys. And it's kind of an homage to Bach, although still very much, like I said, in this romantic style. So the one I'm going to play for you, number 15, has picked up a nickname over the years. It's called the Raindrop Prelude. And, I was on tour this last few weeks, driving all over California in the rain. And the first concert I played this piece, and I decided, I was like, okay, I'll play this every night that it's raining. And guess what? I played it every single night on the tour. It was like that. Anyway, what I love about this piece is that you can hear the element of the raindrops in the music, and it's a little bit buried, so I'm glad you're already listening carefully, because, this style of music, this romantic music, when you listen to it, your ear is drawn to the melody, because that's the way that it's drawn, that's the way that it's put together. And Chopin gives us this typical beautiful melody. And that's great, and that sort of keeps us in its thrall. But underneath it, my left hand has a very interesting accompaniment. Very interesting indeed. Yeah, that's it. Well, it's almost it. But what he does is he has my thumb just hang out on that little A flat and repeat that gentle repetition sort of in the background throughout virtually the whole piece. And it's kind of an amazing thing because, like I said, it's a background detail, but that little gentle repetition, that kind of sets the whole mood of the piece. It creates this calm, sort of repetitive, meditative atmosphere. And somewhere along the line, someone said, "Oh, it reminds me of raindrops on the roof," that kind of effect. And it's kind of a beautiful thing. It gets more interesting. On the second page of music, Chopin introduces a new theme in the bass. So this is totally different from the opening. It's dark, it's low, it's in the minor key, and it's a complete 180 from what we started with. But the thing that doesn't change is that A flat stays right there. And an extraordinary thing happens because without even noticing, that repetition becomes, it's no longer a calming part of the music. That repetition becomes a little bit threatening and a little bit distressing in its obsessive sort of reluctance to let go. And that, I just think that's a beautiful demonstration of the genius of someone like Chopin, because he's taking us on this ride, this emotional journey from one extreme to another, and it all hinges around really just this one note. And I think that's an amazing thing. That tension kind of builds, and there's kind of a storm that breaks loose in the midst of this prelude. But never fear, don't get too stressed. There comes a moment near the end where, you know, it's like the clouds part for a moment, and then a bit of sun comes through, and then the whole world is glistening again and smells fresh. And that melody from the beginning makes an appearance again right at the end to sort of tie things in a bow, to bring things to a resolution. So it's a beautiful piece. It's a great demonstration of how much someone could do with just a few ideas. This is Chopin's Raindrop Prelude. That's how you do Chopin, at least. I mean, it's just such a wonderful piece. How it can be so simple and yet take us to so many places. You know, there's another part to this story. In Mallorca, you know, that's an island between sort of France and Spain in the Mediterranean. And this is a true story. Famously, there's lots of mines in Mallorca, under all of these towns. And Chopin had rented this villa, and it was kind of a terrible villa, and it was raining, and the roof was leaking. And he was composing this piece, and he was trying to find the key of that raindrop. He was pacing around the room. He stomped his foot in frustration, and the floor gave way, and the piano fell into the floor, and it fell down the mine shaft. And that's when he found the key. A flat minor. Sorry, I'll never do that again.